Hello, everybody. So, in this video, second video in my playlist, what I wanted to go through with everybody was kind of the idea for the design that I had for the course, and also to um, what kind of model I'm using for organization. So, first, let me start with this. In the virtual school, I'm hoping that we can kind of shift focus to more of a open-paced, open style of virtual school where it's any place, anytime, and everybody's not on the same track. Um, After going through this course and courses in the program through Ball State and the experiences that I've had within the virtual school, I feel that the more on pace of how our courses are tailored within the Ball State program of week to week, especially for high school students, would really be advantageous for them and their success. I believe that it would break down confusion between students and parents that we get. Seems like we get this constantly of where are we supposed to be? My student says they're here, but you're saying they're here, as far as where they should be at exactly in the course. And I feel like too, we can't really get um, a actual learning cohort together to have engagement. I remember when I was first planning the virtual school course for world history this past year, I started to use some of the things I've seen in Ball State courses, like the discussions and commenting on discussions and facilitating that engagement. And once I realized that that wasn't the case and how the format was going to be, I had to scrap that idea as far as how the discussions go. And that was kind of a downside for me because I felt like you can't really have an engaging I don't want to say an engaging course, but engagement amongst or collaboration amongst the students within a course because they're not on the same pace or on the same time. We're going to have a conversation a little bit later in the year, so I'm interested to see what comes out of it. But anyway, that aside, how I see this course going is kind of on this. Everybody is on the same pace, basically like our Ball State courses, where we are all progressing through at the same time throughout the same unit. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the unit module topic model. This has been an interesting conversation amongst people who are in courses at Ball State, but also the with people in the vocabulary of what's being used. This reminds me of the last course I had at Ball State in the fall, where they talked about vocabulary and project based and problem based and how these things were used almost at will on how people wanted to utilize them. So that's kind of how I feel like with the unit module topic. I really had to wrap my head around how this was going to be organized because even in Canvas itself, these are modules. Unit 0 is a module in their consideration. You even have the plus module sign up here. So it's almost like, these big businesses and others don't even have their heads wrapped around of what the vocab is. And this kind of goes to what we've talked about in our studies before in the first half of the semester of just nailing down what the vocabulary is to get consistency here in the study. But for this purpose, here's how I am going to organize it by the unit module topic model. All of these that are modules within Canvas will be units. So this will be a unit. This whole thing will be a unit. Excuse me. If honestly, if I could, for organizational purposes, I would tweak this a little bit because I feel like it's going to get too long when you throw it in with the units, and that might confuse kids a little bit. Now, that would be more for their sake. I don't really mind it too much because this is essentially the unit within the textbook that we see, 6 chapters within a unit. And so I can see the organization that way, but some people might want it to be broken up a little bit. It's funny. I was actually showing my DIS digital integration specialist this and kind of going through the course with her and getting her thoughts. And one of her first comments was, I think you should break that up or chunk that up a little bit so it's not so long. And not that I disagree with her. I just was kind of explaining to her the unit module topic model. So for our purposes, this whole thing, unit 1, will encompass chapter 1 through chapter 6. for the unit. Then the module will be broken up by these basically the chapters. So chapter 1 overview will be a module. Chapter 2 will be a module. Chapter 3 will be a module, and then so on. 4, 5, and 6 will be modules that will be within the units. Now, technically, how I understand the definition, how I understood it is that these could potentially be modules as well. The required readings, the additional readings, the assignments, or excuse me, the assignments and activities. Those would be essentially models within the unit. I could be wrong on that, but that's how I interpreted it. Then when we get to the actual topics, these will be the topics. From my understanding from the text, it talks about how these can be learning experiences and or assignments. So these would only be my topics within the module. Okay, so just a very quick recap. The unit is Unit 1, from human origins to agrarian communities. The module will be the chapters, or could potentially be the modules within those chapters. And then the topics will be the foraging societies, factors, and Paleolithic, Neolithic infographics. So these 3 assignments essentially will be the topics. And like I said, I'm not opposed to breaking that up and having maybe a modified UMT model for structures, for maybe easier navigations for high school students. So it's not all chunked into one unit. And maybe that's just preference. And then when you go to chapter 2, so we don't have a new unit we're starting here. This would be another module. So chapter 2, overview and announcements. And then, like we said earlier, we could have these be your modules inside of here. But then same thing below, here would be your topics. Cuneiform, Hammurabi's Code, and a Sumerian choose your own path. So those would, like chapter 1, those would be the topics. Chapter 2 would be the module, or like I said, you could break it down between the modules within. And then the overall unit is Unit 1. So I do like that model. I do like the organization of it. But again, it's interesting, especially when I talk to and see other courses from the virtual school in South Bend, of how differently they're organized. And I think as a school, for virtual school, I think it's advantageous for all of us to get on the same page as far as organization goes, as far as if we're going to use the unit model topic model, or excuse me, the unit module topic model, or if they have us, and for their purposes, if they would like us to organize it differently. But as far as organizational purposes, the hardest part about the UMT, like I said earlier, was just wrapping your head around the language of what a unit is, what a module is, and what a topic is. Because before, how I understood it, and I think how most people did, especially at the virtual school that I'm in, this was your module. Right here, this whole thing was the module. What is it, in a sense, in the UMT model, a unit. So this would be the module, and then these were just the topics that you would explore throughout the module. The only thing that was not there would have been like the unit. So when putting this together, I thought that was the most interesting piece of it, because it was so different in changing a vocabulary, at least how I understood the UMT model. And I know there's other ways out there, but after wrapping my head around it, it does make sense how to organize this. And I pretty much organized it through how our Ball State courses are. You'll notice a lot of these have similar verbiage in them, and I'm going to change those a little bit. But you can see basically overview and announcements here. You can see required readings here. And I'll get into this in the next video as far as what is specifically in these. Then you have additional readings and resources here. And then you end with your assignments and activities. I plan to have about 3 in each, but that could potentially change depending on the topic. But I want to keep it somewhat in that realm of 3, which this will segue into the design that I'm going for. After looking at the linear, hyper content, learner directed, and branching, I really wanted to focus on structure. And that's kind of been my theme for this after my experiences from teaching virtual for almost a full school year within the virtual school, going through the Ball State program. And I feel like the design that I'm going for the most is linear. I like the idea of branched. And I think I kind of went to linear in a sense, because of the structure that I think high school students need, where we're progressing at a pace that we're all in sync. And in my opinion, I guess I'm saying that this isn't strictly linear. Like, I know there's an arrow in that design where if they fail the final, they will go back to topic one and progress through it again. So I wouldn't say that mine is in the purest form a linear design model. I think it has the structure of that, where you're going through and you have these topics, these topic number one, topic number two, topic number three, and then you have assessments that are along the way of that. For example, with the first topic, this would be Paleolithic and Neolithic communities, and that would kind of encompass this. Then the second topic would be the idea of what makes up a civilization, which this would be the assessment here. And then the overall assessment that brings all of this together for both would be this infographic that the students are going to make. I'll go into detail about those assignments a little bit in my next, or a lot more in my next video. But I see that as they're progressing through, as that is kind of their self test, and then that final is the final assessment here, where they're putting it all together for the Paleolithic and Neolithic infographic. So I feel like the structure needs to be there for high school students, and especially those on virtual. And that's why I chose that linear design, just for that. I feel like branched, I could have went branch too, and I really like the idea of that because it makes it a little bit more personable. But just starting out and trying to um, get to a point that I'm comfortable with the design, I felt like I should start here with linear, and then as time goes on, when I'm comfortable, I can start to see the other designs and how they would be applicable to other courses, which I think is fascinating. And half of it was, I think the problem that I was trying to go through, especially when I was looking at the design and then trying to go more student-centered, constructivist, was I don't know if I've particularly seen that specifically in a virtual course, which is where I was kind of like, man, if I could just see what it looks like, I could have a little bit better idea. And then I catch myself kind of overthinking it a little bit too. So I wanted to start with something that I was comfortable with that linear design. So that is my justifications for the UMT model of the unit module topic model for organization, and then how that pairs and how that links to how I see the linear design fit into my course as well, which hopefully I'm completing that as much as possible and getting as close to a pure form of linear design as possible. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video, and enjoy the rest of your day.